So there's about 3 things we want to do before we leave today. When I first started this, one of the complaints that I heard, or actually one of the suggestions that we heard a lot of times was there needs to be some output, there needs to be some outcome. So we've taken that on board and we've really thought about it, and this session is partly about that. The second one, I suppose, was we really thought about how do we capture the essence of kind of what's happened today. Now it's our first attempt, and I think in each of the individual sessions, I can't speak for all of them, some of them have probably been captured well, some have been themed up and summed up well. I'll come back to the kind of next steps at the end of this session, but I wanted to start with kind of an open 360 reflection and feedback. So do we have the throwy Mikey Duvalaki, or do we have any roving mics? I want to put it out to the audience, 60 seconds each of you. If you want to sum up, if you want to share back, if you want to tell us the one thing you've learned, if you want to give us some feedback, I'm going to suggest that the feedback butcher's paper, which has been moved about 3 times today, and now I don't know where it is. There is a Is it in here? It's on the door. So as you walk out, if there's something that we can do better, next time we would love to hear you. But for the next 5-10 minutes max, over to you. Share back something you've learned, something you want to say, session that really stood out. My facilitation.
Let's find out. Congratulations to the organising committee. Really well done, Sandra. Fantastic effort. Now that I've got that out of the way, and hopefully the last time on behalf of everyone that'll be said, but the thing that strikes me, it's a little bit passive-aggressive to say, easy to say, hard to do, is my observation is a lot of passion in the room, and that's great. We need to find a way to have maybe a little bit more balance in some of the discussions in terms of perhaps, like that session was great, but no content providers, for example. So they're the people who perhaps can affect some of this change, and if we're going to have a forum that's going to make change happen, some of those people perhaps need to be here as well. So and that's just an example. I'm just saying maybe we need to look at having a bit more balance in some of the discussions. But otherwise, well done. Who's next? Or brave enough?
Yes. Well, so to finish off this session, I'll just say what it is that she's doing. Sylvia.
Just one comment that I really like the use of the Slido for the last session. There were other sessions where it was not possible to make questions. So it's a good way of capturing what the people, the energy in the room is about, although there is lots of knowledge there is a lot of knowledge here as well. So it's actually good to have some probably guidelines for the moderators of the different sessions to make sure that they all use a similar approach, at least to capture.
You know what humans are like. But thank you, yes.
Well, if there are reporting guidelines, then people tend to use them. So that's why to make the comment. Anyone?
So thank you to Sandy and Lindsay. It's been a great day today, and I really appreciate all the great conversations we've had. And sorry I was late this morning. Anyone else?
I felt a little bit bad on pretty much every session that we had to cut it short. It felt like there was more. I don't know how you resolve that and still fit it in a day, but anyway, there it is.
I think that was, yeah, I think that was always going to be a risk. And I think that that's really something to delve into next time. If we do it over 2 days, then what are those deep dives that we want to take? Who do we have on the panel? Who do we have in the room? And, you know, there was a really extraordinary effort of a relatively small group of people. And we got something up. And now the next thing for where we go from here is, you know, a bigger, more collaborative effort. And that stuff is going to really help. Let's go deeper into blah and get these people in the room. That constructive information will be useful.
As one of the people on the steering committee, I'd like to echo the thought that we could have done with more time on every session. I think it's fair to say that the organising committee felt it couldn't afford to run a 2-day event, so it crammed the content of 2 days into 1 day. Hopefully next time we can make it longer.
Or not. Well, and I'm also on the organising committee because we can work in other platforms, in other ways, between one-day events. Let's continue the conversation. You know, leaving everybody wanting more and wishing to continue a discourse, you know, locally or even in a larger space, is not impossible. There's these interwebby thingies that you can actually use to communicate with. But you see what I mean? That maybe this is the seeding exercise for continued conversation. And then some of these places we want to drill down deeper and expand back out again, and some will come to a natural end. And I'm a terrible throw, so don't, for heaven's sake, I'll just pass it
Can
back
we
to
hear
you.
from someone who's not on the organising committee? No more organising committee people allowed to talk for the moment. Can we hear from someone else? Not because of you, Cheryl. Sorry. I'm interested in, and thank you for the feedback, in a really selfish way, I'd like this whole session to be that, but actually I wonder if anyone can share something they've learned, some insight they've taken away, something they're going to do. Great. I was at the New Zealand one, man, everyone got up and just did some serious sharing. What's going on here? We're tired.
Maybe I'll share. Eliza had to leave, which was a pity, because, you know, part of what we're doing here with the IGF in Australia is connection to the IGF stuff that happens in the rest of the world. You have to put it in a certain spot, and so I do want to share, and I'll tweet this through the NetThing account. But Eliza Sorensen, who's been on the board of EFA, she's actually running a workshop in Berlin at the IGF, and that's going to be on sex work, drug use, harm reduction, and the internet. And she's a really great example of someone through her organisation Assembly 4 that is doing a lot of work for people that are really vulnerable and marginalised within society to make the internet and their communities a better place, and got over there on her own steam, unfunded. Fortunately, that was something that EFA were able to step in and provide some assistance. But you know, it's crazy that we have people that are doing such amazing work that you know are willing to fund themselves to go internationally to fly the flag for Australia, so that we can be part of a connected global conversation. And has to fund themselves. So I think that there are ways that we can do better, and knowing who's in the community and the great work that they're doing, especially when they are younger and part of an emerging new set of people and the future leaders and the future voices that we really want to be encouraging. Just encourage everyone to reach out a bit broader into their network and open up doors to these new people that are coming through, because there's a lot of people that are very exciting, that really care about this stuff, that want to build careers and networks into this area, and connect Australia globally. Yeah. I'll come to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. So to answer to your question, what we're going to do next, what I was thinking of doing next week, we have an event in Melbourne as part of Linux Users Victoria main meeting. And I thought I would kind of report back from everything I heard here and We have an amazing community and experts over there too, so that they can become part of this. And I would definitely ask how they can be involved. That's what I'm going to do in Melbourne next week. And anyone in Melbourne, look up Linux Users Victoria, come along to the meeting, that would be great.
Thank you. Speaking of report back, actually, the Australian Internet's 30th birthday dinner this Thursday night, mostly suits in Sydney. Samantha has kindly helped to provide a kind of synthesis of the key themes, which I will share back at the Internet Industry Dinner. And speaking of a share back, I suppose, Sam, help me out here. The way that we will bring this together is in a report, which will come back to the steering committee and which will go to the community. And do we do a short summary as well, or...? Okay, I thought it will be highly consumable, easy to read, short, and we want to feed that back to the community.
I'll come. Oh, maybe.
Do we have the ball?
Yeah, or can I swish past? Sorry. There we go. Go for it.
Thank you.
The first thing might embarrass somebody, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm looking for Tom from ThoughtWorks. Is he still here? Okay, can I talk to you afterwards?
Excellent.
Sorry, someone gave me your name, so I've been looking for you with your glasses and grey shirt. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. So I suppose, just sort of picking up on that, one of the things that I've really thought fantastic about today was I'm from a university. So I sit in my office a lot and don't do too much except talk to sort of students. And I think that there's been a really fantastic, diverse kind of group of people that have been brought together. So I've been collecting lots of business cards today from non-lawyers, non-academics, because I've sort of learnt, and I suppose particularly it's been emphasised here, is that any solutions to any problems that I feel are issues that are close to my heart aren't going to come from the law or from academia. They're going to require people with a whole range of skills, expertise, understandings that I just couldn't possibly have, and I wouldn't meet most people here, either personally or professionally, except in this particular context. So I suppose I just wanted to, I don't know how you found everybody, but yeah, that's been fantastic, and I will be emailing those people whose cards I collected, and Tom when I meet him later. So yeah, so I just wanted to congratulate the organising committee for the diversity, because that's something that's hasn't happened at other conferences. So thank you.
Are we out of steam? Okay, two phone. Oh, Narelle?
So I'm really pleased to see the AU-IGF NetThing kick off again, because we do really need a way to engage the multi-stakeholder community in the regulatory processes that cover the internet. And the more we can constructively feed into those processes that don't just exist into government, they exist across the whole sector. It's, you know, industry needs to talk to all the different people as well as government. And I think this is a great forum within which to do it. And speaking of the broader ones, I count as a personal career highlight, like one of the, maybe the highest one of all, is when I did the Death in the Internet workshop in Brazil, and brought together people from, you know, the whole gamut of folks, and had online participation from Africa to South America to Australia. It was just, you know, huge buzz. Yep, and it came through that whole program. And the international IGFs are a week-long thing, and they have sessions that cover, you know, I've seen excrement battles between governments. I've seen detailed spectrum discussions there. It's really, really amazing. And that's the type of thing that we need to have in our little microcosm in this community, and use it to engage right across and into all the different processes and nooks and crannies. It's a vibrant, wonderful way to do things. Who wants next? Should I throw it all the way through? I don't know if I can. I'm a bit tired.
Oh, you're going to throw it? Oh, there we go.
Thanks. And I'd agree with much of what others have said, including Narelle there, with respect to how do we provide sort of concrete information to the policy processes. What I think the conference, my observation or reflection on the day, is it's really good at sharing perspectives on issues. It's not really good at then taking anything to a solution. I'm an engineer and I like to get to a solution. And I think that the next steps, and I think another speaker drew this out before in the last forum, but if I looked at the last forum, I go, okay, I'm hearing a number of different perspectives, and it's really good for me to hear that because they're perspectives I don't normally hear. But then what I'd like to hear is, so what are we actually doing about it now? That would be the first thing. So there is a lot of private sector work. For example, a speaker from Facebook or Twitter or Telstra or Crazy Domains, like any of the people that host a lot of content in Australia, they have their own story about each of those topics and what they're doing about it. Then the relevant government person, ACMA or whoever's responsible for that particular topic, could say, and this is what we've got today. And then you start then getting feedback, so what could you do more? Because I don't think there's enough of an understanding of what actually exists out there now in most of these topics. Because there's already a lot of work that's done, and to really get multi-stakeholder, you've got to be able to have the operators say, we've heard these issues, this is actually what we're doing about it. And government can say, this is what we're doing about it. And then we can then say, hey, you could do more or less, depending on what the perspective is. But I don't feel that we get to that next level. So I think that's the improvement for me, is getting beyond the issues topic and talking about what exists now, what's proposed to fix it. Let's get the multi-stakeholder view on those solutions.
Jordan here from New Zealand. One of the ways that we deal with this, because if you can have an issues discussion, you can advance a little bit beyond that, as we did with the cyber norms session, where a responsible agency is eliciting input and then getting perspectives. We have a day zero, the day before our NetThing, where you can do the deep dive that Bruce just described. Something that he and I have discussed in the past is the frustration of these processes that take years to make decisions, when actually you could do it in a day if you set it up right. And so one thing you might like to experiment with, if you have a friendly government agency that's got a sort of policy area it really wants to advance and is committed to this multi-stakeholderism thing, is to try a day zero next time and set it up right with some pre-reading material, so you chug through from a shared problem definition, and people from across the community participating in the building of a solution to it. Not consulting people, not sort of getting some opinions, but taking it to that real next level. If you want to add on a policy making, a recommendatory process, that might be something worth thinking about.
I think Ian and then that gentleman. Actually, I'm just going to go to that gentleman. Oh.
Sorry.
Laurie, it's like the universe wanted that at your head.
I didn't even ask for it.
I did play a state sport level, but not for a while. You? Me? Yeah, you wanted it. No. Oh, didn't you? No,
sorry. I don't want it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Ian. Or Paul. Oh, thank you.
That's terrific cooperation there. That's great to see. I think it'd be remiss to end today without mentioning a couple of events that I hope is on the mind of more people than just myself. One is the recent incidents at an internet-related conference in Australia where two speakers were asked to withdraw from the platform because they mentioned the topic of whistleblowing. And as I understand it, that request came from an official of the Australian government. I think that was something that we really need to be aware of, and how inappropriate such action is. At the same time, as we're talking whistleblowers, I think it would be remiss not to mention the Australian government attitude towards the imprisonment of Julian Assange. who has done an awful lot to expose issues that needed to be exposed if we're going to have a better world. So just mentioning there are things that we ought to be able to do better, and I hope we move on. And otherwise, today was terrific, and I really enjoyed being there. I'm not sure why you chose a parrot. Is that a parrot? As the image for our reflections, but there you go. Look, it's been a terrific conference. Thank you. I was very pleased to be able to attend.
Thank you, Ian. And probably two more.
See if I'm a better throw than you, Laurie.
In baseball, it's called a curveball. Well, look, sorry, I don't want to end on anything other than a pleasant note, but I just have to disagree vehemently. I have great sympathy for Julian Assange. He is in a very bad way, but he has done the internet the most horrible disservice. He dumped hundreds of thousands of unfiltered, uncorroborated files onto the internet with no concern for the damage that could be done to people who were named in it. We talked about privacy. If Roger's here somewhere, Roger Clark's here somewhere behind me. Roger basically single-handedly stopped the Australia card on the basis of people needing privacy rights. We lost interest in privacy, and now we're gaining interest in privacy, and Julian Assange is not a journalist.
Sally down here. That's that.
Oh, hang on. Are we insured?
Thank you.
Yes, we are.
Good. Hi, Sally Rogers. I've flown in from a little rural town in Oxley, 2.5 hours north of Melbourne, and here on a volunteer basis, I guess, on behalf of my rural community, and just want to obviously thank the organisers, and I wouldn't have been able to come otherwise, being a part-time mum, part-time worker, all the juggling of everything, and they've made it possible for me to be here. And I love that we've tackled world issues, national issues, but I also, what I've missed this time, I love hearing the warm and fuzzy stories from the community up, what they're doing in their small towns, because I know all of you do pro bono work and you all have your own warm fuzzy story that you do beyond your paid roles. That's the part I love and get a buzz out of. So, but thank you for having me here. So, yeah.
We'll go to Paul, and can we go via Clay, only because he's close, but then Paul's going next, and then I think Roger, and then at this point we're all going to be hand-holding.
We've got to meet Tom at the bar.
We do need to wrap it up. Which is lovely.
Thanks. I just have a quick thought that I've been listening to the discussion, and I really appreciate folks calling out the need to continue a constructive dialogue that leads to actual change. And Jordan's idea of implementing a day zero workshop is really good. It doesn't necessarily capture what a lot of the folks were saying about the need to carry the conversation forward. So perhaps we could do something that a lot of other internet governance forums that face the same challenge hasn't tried, and do a day after. So then you're carrying the conversation and then having the workshop the day after. And I don't know, it might not work. People might not say that's kind of the challenge, but it could be something a little different that the Aussies could add to the, the global approach.
Excellent suggestion. We've captured quite a lot, so thank you. We'll add that. I think we'll just go swiftly over to Paul and then to Roger.
Oh. That was vicious, man.
Break a window.
Vicious.
This did not happen in New Zealand either.
No, that's right.
I knew this would happen in Australia. I just knew it.
I've been to quite a few of these things, and I think this one has been really good. So really congratulations to you, Sandra, and to the whole committee for bringing together this group. I think the level of energy and participation, the diversity as well, the level of participation and energy through the whole day has been pretty damn good, and I think it really does indicate good things for another one. So I hope it happens. One of the things that in quite a lot of other cases tends to happen around IGFs is to sort of start thinking about the next generation, and let's bring in the newcomers and let's have a school of IGF or something like that. And I'd sort of disagree with the idea of having a separate school of internet governance. I think this event should be a school of internet governance. I think it should be welcoming people and a really safe space for people to learn about what's going on. And I think almost everyone here has got something to learn anyway, so the idea of having newcomers versus old faces is really a bad thing to do. So if there was going to be a day zero, then that's a good time to be making time available for willing people to come along and start, hold some classes, do some stuff, whatever, which hopefully can be engaging and really help to bring people in. I think we should never be afraid of having new faces, often repeating some of the same discussions as before, which some of the old faces start to complain about a bit too much sometimes, because these are issues that keep going on, and if the discussions need to happen a couple of times over from year to year, then that's just the way it is. But really, I think it's been a great event. I hope it keeps going. Thanks.
I really want this woman here to speak to because it's important.
Before or after?
You go first.
Okay, thanks. Years ago, I spent about 8 or 10 years on the organising committee for computers, freedom and privacy in the States and Canada. And what that did was to bring together the many diverse perspectives, and every panel always had one of as many different perspectives as possible. They were brilliant at organising it. So the FBI was always there, the big IT corporations were always there, the libertarians were always there, the more gentle advocates like me were always there, sci-fi writers were on my panels, so enormous diversity, and that, of course, occasionally the FBI arrested somebody while they were there, but it was good fun. Now, that's pertinent, and I was reminded of this by what Laurie said. What I've been impressed with here is that we aren't having a privacy conference, we're not having a particular freedoms conference or a particular other freedoms conference, we're actually having all of those things treated as being part of the complex that the internet is and that society using the internet is about. I think there's been a great deal of maturation. Compared to 10, 20 and 30 years ago, this is so much better to listen to because we've got them all wrapped up together. And I congratulate you on that. And yes, I think keep doing these things and keep this openness, and definitely keep this kind of thing. And yeah, I'm sorry.
Final.
Hey, just a brief, I guess, introduction. I'm Winnie, and I am in my final year of high school. I think that makes me the youngest person here.
Yay! Yay!
That in itself is nothing really special, but I thought that when I saw it, I kind of signed up out of the blue, and I was kind of interested in what's going on, just kind of being, yeah, as people say, part of the next generation. And this event has hit a lot of really important topics, such as, yeah, like data protection, privacy, what are we actually doing with our personal information, and moving forward with like massive social media companies and all of this really good stuff. I think, sorry, I forgot what your name was, sir, but he touched upon like the school of IGF. And I think a lot of the content that's being discussed needs to be reframed in a certain way, because I found coming in that a lot of the terms being thrown around, I had no idea what they meant. And if this organization was really into, I guess, opening up to people outside of the industry, opening up to just average citizens like me that, number one, have no background in either studying or working in the sector, I think there needs to be a more different or an adapted approach into how to include average citizens into a conversation which does have a lot of technical elements into it. But otherwise, it was a really great discussion. I had a lot of fun listening in to different professions and different stakeholders in what they had to say kind of about the current affairs and what's going on. Yeah, thanks.
That's an excellent way to finish the day.
And just on that, Winnie, how would you feel about having a chat about joining the steering committee and putting some of your ideas into the next one? All right, let's talk after this.
Yeah.
We have two very, very last steps. So I think I've talked about sort of something like that. I've mentioned kind of most of what's up there on the screen. There is an outer event for anyone that's in. Is it anyone or is it members? Anyone. And it is building 10. You can meet me in 5 minutes in the foyer. If anyone wants to go to that, that's Kat. That's Kat from Outer. And just very finally, before we wrap up, I really wanted to just stop again and say a heartwarming thanks to all of our partners and sponsors that have allowed us to put this thing on. In particular, and it's a bit provocative, I feel like saying it, Amazon stumped up. And they came in early, so thank you. And it's like a domino effect. So thank you very much, Amazon, and thank you very much, Outer, and all of the other partners and sponsors that have enabled this to happen today. And we're done.
Just a quick plug, if I may. It's internet and its governance. Internet Australia has been absolutely stoked to be helping to drive and incubate this whole thing in partnership with a whole pile of people. And because of that, most of our board are here, half of our membership is in the audience, we have a whole pile of alumni, so we've chosen to piggyback our AGM immediately after this now in the round room over there. So if you're a member, please hang back for a couple of minutes, come through. We'd be delighted to have you at our AGM this year. That's a governance thing, obviously, for us, and then we'll join you at dinner or the bar or wherever you happen to be. Thank you.
We've got one more thing. Without you, Sandra, this event would not have occurred. It's taken how long? 2 years, blood, sweat, toil.
2 months it was supposed to.
Yes. A lot of the time, I think a lot of us were thinking we're never going to get there. We had a massive trough in terms of funding or lack of it, but you were there the whole time. You were there the whole time. We wouldn't have done this without you. So here's a small sign of gratitude.
Thank you. I've loved it. Thank you a lot.